back to the Road to WrestleMania episode number 7, and we are covering the Raw before WrestleMania, the go-home show for the biggest event in the WWE calendar. And with just 6 days until the conclusive event of this series, we really have to hit a home run with the next 2 shows, this Raw and of course the SmackDown 2 nights before WrestleMania. Raw begins with a scene in the back, preceding even the introduction from the commentators, the opening credits or any recap from last week. Randy Orton is seen at the entrance of the building waiting for AJ Styles to arrive. Recently, after AJ Styles returned to Raw, he has targeted the Viper, with last week's Raw seeing the Phenomenal One take Orton down not once but twice during the course of the night. Randy Orton wants his revenge, and he's not going to let AJ even enter the building before he gets his hands on him. This was followed by the usual opening package to the show, a look back at last week's show and a look forward to tonight's go-home episode of Monday Night Raw. Out of that, Drew McIntyre, the #1 contender to the WWE Championship, made his way down to the ring. The Royal Rumble winner has had Brock Lesnar's number throughout the course of the build to this match, to an unprecedented degree really, and he put this over in a promo that called the Beast out from the back. Paul Heyman came alone, however, saying that Brock Lesnar was here, but he wasn't going to go face to face with Drew tonight. Drew McIntyre said that he knew why Brock wasn't showing his face. It's the same reason Paul Heyman hasn't made his usual spoiler warning ahead of a Brock Lesnar match at WrestleMania, because he knows that Brock isn't leaving that event as the WWE Champion. It's because they both know at WrestleMania he is taking the title from that big, dumb coward. These words, designed to rile up Brock Lesnar, did draw him out from the back, and he was ready to go at Drew McIntyre when the challenger added that Brock Lesnar would shit his pants once he got in the ring with Drew at Mania, adding that that wasn't a prediction but a spoiler. Paul Heyman managed to hold the WWE Championship back, or rather encourage him not to go down to the ring, but he definitely wanted to prove he wasn't afraid of Drew McIntyre. The commentators didn't doubt the WWE Champion for a second, but did wonder whether Paul Heyman was less than 100% confident in his client, meaning that would be the first time ever that Paul Heyman has had doubts about Brock Lesnar. That's a great opening segment. Drew McIntyre and Paul Heyman both working the crowd well and gaining a huge amount of heat to that segment, we have to assume, with a 95 A-star to kick off the show. We then go into a promo from the Street Profits. They do the usual job of just trying to hype up the crowd before they lose in convincing fashion. It wasn't a squash, it did go 7 minutes 33. Not a very good match, but AOP pick up a victory. They've got their eyes on the Raw Tag Team titles, and they beat Dawkins and Montez Ford in the process of that. After the match, Buddy Murphy, who was at ringside, Seth Rollins absent for the time being, Murphy promoted Seth's face-to-face with Edge later in the ring, but the Viking Raiders cut that short, coming down to confront AOP, who attacked them and Owens and Joe, the tag team champions, last week. Owens and Samoa Joe then came out themselves, with Buddy leading AOP out through the crowd. They wanted nothing to do with it, especially as for once they're the ones outnumbered. It was confirmed, however, on commentary that the titles would be defended in a 3-way tag team match at WrestleMania. We then get a segment backstage. Randy Orton's wait for AJ Styles is over, but it's a bait and switch as he is jumped from behind by Anderson and Gallows. The OC then bundled Randy Orton into a vehicle, with the Good Brothers driving Orton away from the building. AJ Styles laughed and smirked as he entered the arena, knowing that he wouldn't have to deal with Randy Orton tonight. He did, however, have a main event match against Drew McIntyre to contend with. As AJ Styles continued walking in the building, he passed by a furious Erick Young. Last week, Erick Young lost the 24/7 championship after Mojo Rawley returned the cage that Young had stolen from Rowan back to Erick Rowan. It's a very confusing storyline, and it's not that important. The point is, Erick Young had Erick Rowan under control because he had possession of the cage, but now he doesn't. Erick Young has to find another technique to get the 24/7 championship back. A video package recaps Ronda Rousey's return to the WWE and promotes her match with Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania. Later tonight, Ronda will head to the ring. She plans to go face-to-face with Charlotte Flair ahead of their huge match on Sunday. Jinder Mahal and Bobby Lashley were in the second match. Jinder Mahal has served as something of a mentor to Bobby Lashley in recent weeks. He's struggled, so Jinder has offered his services. They teamed up against Rusev and Rey Mysterio, the faces winning, Rusev pinning Jinder Mahal. This was a preview of the multi-man ladder match that's going to take place at WrestleMania. Lashley, Rey Mysterio and Rusev all scheduled to be in that, but also a sign that the Lashley and Jinder alliance isn't really working. After the match, these issues continued, Lana berating Jinder Mahal, killing her Bobby's career and his Edge's credibility. Lashley tried to calm her down as Ray and Rusev watched on, finding this very amusing. They found the humour in this, but as we cut to the back, Zelina Vega was not in a good mood. She said that Andrade being forced to defend the title in a ladder match and a multi-man match at WrestleMania wasn't fair, saying that given how well he's done this year, how good of a United States champion he's been, how he's represented the WWE, he deserves better. Humberto Carrillo came in, making fun of Andrade and reminding him that he has a match with Aleister Black later tonight. The second hour of Raw begins with Edge in the back, interviewed as he arrived at the building, saying that he has a lot to say about Seth Rollins tonight and he's going to wait to get in the ring, but he is aware of the threats of those disciples of Seth Rollins. Edge says that at times like this you need to look to your brothers and your friends, and at this point Christian walks in. He's joined Edge and he looks delighted to be back on Raw. He promises that he has Edge's back tonight. AJ Styles then walks into shot, looking cocky and going face to face with Edge, the man who had eliminated him from the Royal Rumble. He tells Edge that he better take better care of Christian than he did of his friend Randy Orton, because as it stands, the Viper isn't going to be at WrestleMania. Making her way down to the ring, Ronda Rousey made only her second appearance on the Road to WrestleMania, and while she was ready for Charlotte Flair to come out, it was instead the rest of her 4 horsewomen friends who came and met her in the ring, the first time all 4 have been in a ring on Raw. Shayna Baszler was flanked by Duke and Shafir, and said that with them all being so busy right now, it's a great time for them to finally reunite in a WWE ring. Baszler said that Ronda hadn't been active in the Horsewomen WhatsApp group, but just wanted to check with her that the plan was still on. Duke added that Ronda had double blue ticked them, and that was pretty bad etiquette. Ronda Rousey said that she'd seen the plan, but she didn't want any part of it. She added that they'll always be best friends, but facing Charlotte is something she has to do alone. Baszler was annoyed by this, especially as Ronda suggested that she should do the same against Becky Lynch and not rely on her friends. If she really wants to prove herself, she'd leave Duke and Shafir in the back. Shayna looked furious to be humiliated by her friend, but managed to keep her cool. She told Ronda that she'd heard enough, adding that Shafir and Duke were about to earn their way into the World Tag Team titles match at WrestleMania, and if she was a friend, she'd leave the ring and do the right thing. After all, Shayna didn't think that there was much chance of Charlotte coming out to the ring anytime soon. With a smirk on her face, this led Ronda to wonder what they'd done to her, the commentators speculating that perhaps Shayna, Duke and Shafir had got their hands on Charlotte in the back. Duke and Shafir wanted a shot at the women's tag team titles at WrestleMania that is currently taken by Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross, and while the match did go longer than expected, Asuka and Kairi Sane had too much for them, picking up the win in 7 minutes and 45, Asuka carrying the match. But the point is that Asuka and Kairi Sane will be at SmackDown on Friday to go face to face with their challengers, Bliss Cross, who will take on them at WrestleMania. While the celebration continued, Charlotte Flair came out from the back, confronting Shayna Baszler with a bloody towel in her hand. This is another good segment, but she says that she wants a piece of Shayna Baszler before she faces Ronda Rousey on Sunday. This brought Ronda out from the back. She grabbed Charlotte and told her to leave. She demanded that she focused 100% on her. She said Flair needs her eyes on the prize because if she doesn't, then she stands no chance at WrestleMania. Charlotte obviously took this as a threat, the two going face to face, the heated argument continuing as we go into a commercial. Returning from the break, it was confirmed that a huge match would take place, Charlotte Flair v Shayna Baszler, added to the show, and it was happening right now. The commentators put over the fast work of the WWE matchmakers as a wild brawl broke out in the ring. Fairly shortly into the match, it went to a no contest. 5 minutes and 53, they were uncontrollably fighting on the outside, Ronda Rousey coming between them and the referee just deciding that he had to call the bell. Ronda Rousey continued to struggle to come between the two. After the match, in an excellent segment, the brawl went back into the ring, Ronda Rousey being shoved away by Flair. This fired up Ronda Rousey and she came back and dropped Charlotte Flair in the ring. Shayna and her partners then crowded Ronda Rousey, making it look like she was now back on board with them and in on the plan. Ronda Rousey didn't look particularly comfortable with this, but still looked down on Charlotte Flair as Becky Lynch ran down to get involved. While Ronda hadn't really done anything but retaliate to Charlotte, Becky had it in her mind that she knew what was going on, and she told Shayna Baszler that she knew what the plan was. The 4 of them are free to conspire against them though, because there is no way that Becky is leaving WrestleMania without the title she took from Ronda Rousey Breaking things up in the back, we get a match which is more of a segment. We see Erick Young trying to catch Erick Rowan in a huge net. He wants that cage back. Erick Rowan turns around and sees him doing this, setting upon the former 24/7 champion. As Erick Young runs away, he happens to fall into something that knocks into Mojo Rawley. Young falls on top of Rawley, sending him tumbling to the ground. A nearby referee just happens to be there to count the fall. Erick Young has won the title back, in a way, thanks to Erick Rowan. Returning to that ring after that pointless segment, Edge made his entrance to close out the second hour of the show. Another brilliant segment. We've had some excellent segments on this show going into WrestleMania, and that is going to do great things for our storylines and in turn will help the matches when we get there. He puts over his match with Seth Rollins on Sunday and the history between the two. He shows a clip from years ago just showing how long this rivalry's been, when he was held hostage by Seth Rollins in order to reinstate the authority. Through everything, however, through his retirement, through injury, through the humiliations like that they'd just seen on the screen, one man had his back: Christian. Edge brought his best friend out, but as he walks down to the ring, Christian is grabbed by AOP. Edge looks to leave the ring to help his friend, but Seth Rollins is out shortly after, telling him not to take another step. Buddy Murphy followed after, standing guard at the entranceway, as Seth said that goes for anybody in the back too. Halfway down the ramp, Christian found himself hostage to the AOP, much like Edge had been during that segment we mentioned earlier. Edge was torn about what to do, but stopped in his tracks when Seth placed a foot on the neck of Christian, reminiscent again of that segment. Seth Rollins asked him to remember how pathetic, small and worthless he felt when John Cena had to save him from a lifetime of misery and pain. That's what awaits Christian if Edge takes another step. Edge was helpless as Seth Rollins mocked him and made a series of personal comments. He suggested that after Sunday, his wife would be the breadwinner in the house, while also having to feed her husband through a straw. Eventually, Seth Rollins had his fun and had riled up Edge enough that AOP threw Christian towards the ring. Seth and his group left, Edge immediately going to check on his best friend, the Rated R superstar, obviously furious, obviously fired up. I think that would get a lot of heat to Seth if that segment happened in real life, and the animosity between the two really raised ahead of Sunday's WrestleMania clash. The third and final hour of Raw begins with another good video package, just rated on a few of the people involved in the big segments from tonight. It's just a recap to catch anybody up who hadn't seen the first 2 hours. Cutting to the back, Ronda Rousey is interviewed and she talks about events of earlier again, denying any collusion with her friends about a potential plan for WrestleMania. She's come back to fight Flair in a one-on-one match, and that is what she wants to do. This didn't sit well with Becky Lynch, who confronted Ronda, telling her that if she so much as showed her face during Becky's match with Shayna, she'd kick her ass too in front of all those people at WrestleMania. Ronda Rousey said that Becky didn't have to worry about her just yet. She did warn that when she'd done with Charlotte Flair, however, Becky was the next on her hit list. Back to the action in the ring. We've not had a lot of matches on tonight's show, but Aleister Black and Andrade putting on a pretty good match there. Black picking up the victory in 11 minutes and 40, giving him that momentum boost. He sits in the ring. He will also be in the United States Championship match at WrestleMania, gunning for Andrade's title. Ricochet then gave an update on his condition from home, having not been seen since his defeat at the hands of Brock Lesnar at Super Showdown. Ricochet said that he was hurting all over, but there was no way he wouldn't be at WrestleMania in some shape or form. Footage was shown of him being manhandled and destroyed by Brock, but he vowed to make his mark on the biggest show of the year, one way or another. A backstage segment showed that the Good Brothers were back in the building, having dealt with Randy Orton earlier in the night. AJ Styles walked off, delighted after they confirmed that they had dealt with him, but Anderson and Gallows didn't look so confident when it was just the two of them left in the room. Anderson said, "We've got to tell him," but Gallows decided that they should remain silent and hope for the best. Looking to break the show up a bit, Mojo Rawley is seen in the ring. He calls out Erick Young for a 24/7 title. He wants to do it man-to-man the old school way. Erick Rowan answered the call, however, having seemingly won the title off screen, he'd become the champion. He hit a chokeslam to Mojo Rawley in the ring before heading back up. He's the 24/7 champion heading into WrestleMania. AJ Styles and Drew McIntyre put on a decent main event, great wrestling and good heat. It does only get a 75, probably because I kept AJ Styles strong and because of so much interference. It was a good match, but I didn't want them to go all out because it is so close to WrestleMania and the last thing we needed was them to be fatigued and injured. During the match, AJ Styles looked to take advantage of a distracted referee, the Good Brothers helping him and then using the numbers to help him gain control. However, With the referee still distracted by Carl Anderson, Randy Orton came back. He was back, having somehow made his way back to the building. He hit an RKO to AJ Styles before doing the same to Luke Gallows. Carl Anderson only became aware of Orton's presence as he was the victim of the final RKO. Back in the ring, AJ Styles did get back to his feet, but was immediately hit with a Claymore kick, Drew picking up the win in 14 minutes and 56 seconds. The final match on the Raw Road to WrestleMania, Orton stood tall in the ring, celebrating the fact that despite everything he's gone through, he finally gets one over on AJ days before their WrestleMania match. The night wasn't over there, however, as Brock Lesnar came out from the back. Earlier he wanted his hands on Drew, Paul talked him out of it, but having seen that match, Brock wants Drew McIntyre. He's fatigued and he probably smells the weakness. He can get the better of Drew for the first time. The story between the two men has been Brock's inability to overpower and manhandle Drew McIntyre like he can pretty much any other member of the roster, Drew getting the better of him on a number of occasions. This seemed unlikely to be the case again, however, as Brock looked to take Drew McIntyre up with a F5 following a brief stare down between the two. While Brock did get Drew up, the number one contender rolled out the back, pushing Brock away, the two then coming back, reconvening face to face in the middle of the ring. Brock smirked cockily at Drew McIntyre, who responded with a Glasgow kiss, a headbutt reminiscent to that iconic TNA moment between Samoa Joe and Kurt Angle. The show ended with Paul Heyman with his head in his hands coming to the top of the ramp, looking down, gravely concerned for his client, the WWE Champion. Drew McIntyre triumphantly headed out of the ring and up the ramp, but as the grounded Brock Lesnar tasted his own blood from his busted nose, he smirked and looked to be almost enjoying himself, enjoying the brutality and physicality of this rivalry as Raw went off the air. So it's an 87B+. There wasn't the best in-ring action on the show, but definitely a bunch of brilliant segments, a bunch of A and A-star rated segments. Couldn't really ask for more in terms of building up the storylines. Those marquee matches on the Raw side set in stone, but we still have that SmackDown show, and there are some equally big segments planned for that event.